Hello, this is Steph Giordano with Human Services Research Institute, or HSRI. Today I'm going to show you how to add a new user to the Odessa system. So I've kind of skipped that step of logging into the system. This is that main page that you get to as soon as you log in. What we're going to do is click that Administration tab down at the bottom, which opens up a link where you can do some user maintenance. You can also look at usage reports, so user login totals, the total number of people who've logged in, and how many times each individual user has logged in. But what we're going to do is go up to this user accounts here. Alright, so let's start out by adding a user here. So one of the very first or major kind of changes that we've made this year in functionality is that all users, including group users, will be able to have access to more than one group. So let's start out by adding just a group user. And again, those are people who, regardless, are only able to see the surveys that they enter. But again, now they'll be able to see surveys across groups if they are possibly entering information for more than one group. So let's say I am that group user. So what you'll have to do is select a default group. For some of you, you'll only have default as the possibility. Others will have several other groups that'll be assigned. So let's say my sort of default group, that's a group that shows up as soon as I log in, is group 1. Now we can say that I'm only going to be associated with this group 1, and that means that I'm only entering surveys within that group. I could be associated with more than one group, but not all, in which case you'll be asked after you finish the rest of the information to select all of the groups to which this user belongs. Or you can just say that I will be working across all of the groups. Now we're also going to be able to decide which surveys I'll have access to. So maybe I'm only doing the consumer survey, possibly the consumer survey, and then possibly entering some child-family survey data. You'll see here for family guardian survey, this particular state that we made up is not going to be participating in family guardian survey, so that's not even an option. You'll also be able to determine whether whether the user will have access to pre-survey information. For those of you whose state is not using pre-survey at all in the Odessa, this will sort of how family guardian surveys grayed out here will also be grayed out for pre-survey. You can restrict background information, or you can restrict the survey part of the data fields for users. So again, this is if a user is perhaps a case manager entering just the pre-survey and background information, or just the background information. We also have this option for self-directed supports. This is something that again will be grayed out for states that are not doing self-directed supports or do not have anyone self-directing in their sample. So one other thing to show you here is that if I were an administrator, you'll see that there is an additional box that'll open up at the very bottom. And so these give you access to controlling additional administrative functions for this user. So whether you want this person to be able to add and edit users, if they can transfer surveys, and that means that they're able to see that one survey belongs to one user but should go to another to finish or update the survey. You want to say whether this person can finish or unfinished surveys and whether they can download data. Alright, so once all of this information is complete, you can either send that invite right away by just clicking save, or if you want to set up accounts before you send invitation emails, you can uncheck the send invitation email and then click save. Now remember, this user is going to be associated with more than one group but not all. So once we click save, it's going to bring up an additional page where you'll identify which groups this user should belong belong to. We have that group 1 checked off as a default. We can make a different option if we'd like on the second column here. And then once all of this information is complete, we click Save. And again, whenever ready, you can send out that user account information by clicking the person's name and then sending out that invite email. While we're in here, I can just show you a couple of other things. So we can edit information, including user information, what groups they have access to. We can deactivate users if they are no longer with the state. You can also invite, reset logins if needed, and check out how many times they've logged in with this drop down here. If people forget their account information, you can also check off their name and then reset their account information in order to have that information get resent to the person. So the last little bit of information is if you have any issues as you set up users, you can always use this problem report, fill out the information here, and then it will get sent immediately to the NCI support at hsri.org, where we'll be able to address any issues that you come across. And that takes us to the end of this video for how to add a user to the Odessa system. Thank you all so much for listening.